Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Comic Source. In a way, this is a little departure from what we've done before. Also, a little bit of a preview San Diego Comic-Con episode like we've been doing for the last week or so. But I have a creator here to talk about a project. He's going to be there at San Diego Comic-Con. There's going to be a panel. He's going to be talking about it. And it leans into manga, which, as longtime listeners of the podcast will know, I don't have a lot of knowledge of. But guess what? I know a lot more now in preparation to talk to Samuel Sattin, who is one of the creative minds behind a reimagining of Unico, which is a property, a manga property, classic manga property from someone I've learned a lot about recently, Osamu Tezuka, the Godfather of Manga, the god of manga, if you will. So, long story short, Samuel, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Nice to see everybody, or nice to be heard by everybody. Yeah, I'm the writer of Unico Awakening, which is, as Jace said, a reimagining of a classic Tezuka story. And we're so excited for it to come out.
Yeah, and again, if you guys don't know who Osamu Tezuka is, do yourself a favor. This is what I did. I went to YouTube. There's a couple of fantastic documentaries. There's one that's actually in Japanese from 1984 that was awesome. It's subtitled. It's fascinating to learn about this. And, manga is its own sort of art form. Yes, it's similar to Western comics in a way. It's sequential storytelling, but it is uniquely something that's all its own and really kind of blew up in Japan after World War II for a lot of reasons. But let me ask you, Samuel, obviously, a manga fan for a long time, to be adapting a work from this revered manga creator, why is now the right time? And give us an idea of how the project came about.
Sure thing. So the project came about a few years back. Basically, I've been interested in anime and manga for a really, really long time, and I discovered Tezuka I discovered him in my mid-20s, but I really got into him in my mid-30s and early 30s, mid-30s. And I just, once I really started to get into his work, I tried to find everything I could that he worked on. And so when I was trying, so basically a few years ago, I was working with a few different folks through my friend Deb Aoki, who introduced me to some people that were working in Japan with some various projects. And one of those people, I explained about how much I love Osamu Tezuka. And he said, well, would you like to try to pitch to them? And I said, really? And so, I put together and it turned out that they were looking for, they were kind of blue skies about who they would take pitches from, but what characters they would allow pitches from. But, they said they were always interested in Unico because Unico is a character who's kind of beloved, but also hasn't really had many reimaginings in the last couple decades. It's mostly been like there were some really popular films that came out in the 80s, some really popular cult films that came out in the 80s, animated films that I remember seeing when I was a kid and that I loved. And then there are a couple of things since then, animated and otherwise, but it's mostly been people working with merchandising and things like that. And so I read and reread the original manga, and I just thought it was such a wonderful story and such a profound story and so interesting. And the character was kind of both heroic and lonely. And I really thought I really thought that, to play into your other question, work into your other question, I really felt that like now was the time for something like this, because it's a kind of story that explores such it's a story about bravery and hope and truth and trying to find oneself and the power of memory, and at the center of it all is the very fate of love itself. And then at the same time, it's also a story that doesn't shy away from difficult truths and kind of is able to address difficult topics. And I think that a lot of, kids today are dealing with a lot of, difficult topics. So I thought that would be it's a really good chance for that. And so when I pitched it to Tezuka Productions, they, to my great surprise and excitement, said yes. And they said I could work on it. So we put it together initially. It took us a long time to find, to get kind of into pace about it. But we ended up I ended up going to Deb Aoki again, my friend who introduced me to a person working in Japan. His name is Aki Yanagi, and he had access to. He represents a kind of handful of Japanese artists who work with the United States, as well as in Japan. And Gurihiro was one of those. And so I went to Gurihiro. We asked them if they would be interested in the project, and even though they were interested at first, they said no. Because they thought it was going to be a little too they were a little nervous taking on a big Tezuka project because it would be like taking on a combination of like a project from like Walt Disney and Carol Schultz. It's a big banner to kind of hoist, and so they were nervous about it. But then we talked to them more and explained that they'd be able to give their own take on the on the character, and they eventually said yes. And so from then we launched a Kickstarter that did pretty well and got funded pretty quickly. And soon after that, and that's how the project kind of came to be. And I can talk about how it landed at Scholastic too, but that might be another question you have, so I'm not quite sure. But yeah, that's pretty much how it came into being. And then and one of the other reasons why I think it's so such a perfect time for this, and this might feed into another question you have as well, but I think that I was at American Library Association recently, and I met so many, and everybody was talking about manga. It's just everybody's like, kids just are reading manga. Everybody wants manga, and I understand. I love manga too. But it's like it's hard to give an 8-year-old Demon Slayer,
right,
or even Attack on Titan or My Hero Academia. All really subjective. They're all for teens. They're not. If you're 14 or if you're 13 or 14, then yeah, okay, but like not for an 8-year-old. And so the idea with this is that we can give actual manga, like really good, like everything that what a kid might look for in a really strong manga story. Lots of characters, dynamism, heroics, a big serial story that goes on, that we can give them that, but for their age group. Right. And so, librarians can actually recommend it to their kids, and their parents won't send them back being like, what did you give my child? Right. So I think those reasons, it just really felt like, kind of the stars aligned in a way for this to really come back, and I think it's an important time to do so.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to the brilliance of Tezuka's original story, right? Like, there's all these layers. You talked about it being a story of kind of self-identity and bravery and facing the things that maybe you don't want to face, ugly truths and that sort of thing. But even beyond that, like, also the idea, one of the things that struck me when I read Unico Awakening, but also went back and read the original, was this sense of kind of sacrifice, right? Like, Unico is putting himself out there, putting himself at risk to make other people happy, right? Like, value in that, like, walk a mile in another man's shoes. Oh my God, could we use some empathy in this world right now?
Yeah. Oh my God. Right. And the thing is, just to add real quickly, he never is able to see, he's never able to, he gets his memories wiped after every single time he goes through and does these things. So he's never actually able to like look back at fondly upon these things either. It's just like he's doing good.
That's the brilliance of it. He's not doing it for any sense of self-satisfaction. He's doing it because it's the right thing to do. And to your point of having it be for younger readers, it's for anybody of all ages. But that it's accessible to younger readers, that's a lesson you can't learn early enough in life. That you do things to help other people, to make other people feel good, because it's the right thing to do, not because of how it makes you feel or any other ulterior motive. So yeah, it's 100% the right time, maybe past time for this too.
No, I'm so glad you picked up on that. It's so true, and I completely agree. Like it's Unico's a story about empathy,
Yeah,
and empathy is something we are sorely lacking, I think, in our modern day culture and what we have going on, especially just if you look around you now.
yeah.
So yeah, it's just
Does
like it's a really good it is a story about empathy.
yeah? Does that tie in? You mentioned bringing it over to Scholastic. I know they vet their things very carefully. They want to make sure that it's worthwhile. I would think that was a consideration that they had, that this can be for all ages, and it does. It tells a story that is of value.
Oh yes, yeah. I mean, like one of the things they and I appreciate so much that they love about the story is that it does even though it is something that we are positioning towards children so that towards kids like so they can make sure they have they have this thing to read, they can enjoy this story. It absolutely is for everyone. It is yeah, it reminds me in a way like the way that I like to think about it is like I grew up in the early 90s, and I was born in 1982, so I was watching a lot of animated films from the late 70s and the 80s, and we had a lot of things that would come over, or you would have access to, that you could watch as a child,
Mm-hmm.
and you found maybe a little dark, maybe a little mysterious, but absolutely, meaningful and stuck with you for such a long time. And they were about bigger ideas
Mm-hmm.
that, that sometimes I think people now don't think kids can handle for some
Yeah,
reason.
yeah,
And so they think that, kids are going to get frightened at the idea of like having to handle something a little scary or something a little, or something a little big for them. And then you can go back and watch those films as an adult and be like, wow, those are, you can see a different level of them. They're absolutely incredible films. So like, I'm thinking about stuff even just, The Secret of Nim or The Black Cauldron, or,
right.
even non-anime ones like The Neverending Story, and things that were just a little more, little heftier. The Last Unicorn,
Mm-hmm.
things that were a little heftier for, angled towards kids, but really made for everyone. So, and yeah, I think that's Scholastic absolutely recognizes that, and so that's why I'm so thankful they're putting they're putting it out there in such a wonderful way.
Well, Tezuka sort of famously, cited Walt Disney as a huge influence, and you can see it in his work. If you go back and look at his version of Unico, looks different from what Gurihiro was doing, which is perfectly fine. They're both valid, but it does have both of them have a very timeless feel. I think clean lines, clean art, a lot of emotion in the face, which we expect from manga, and in the body language. But certainly that sort of appeal with the bright colors, as we see on the cover. And that's something else that we should mention, that this, unlike a traditional manga, this is not in black and white. This is in color. It's got that visual appeal for younger readers. I'm sure that was purposeful on your part.
Yeah, actually, and yeah. So the interesting thing about that is that Osamu Tezuka actually originally created this to be a full color book, full color manga read from left to right.
Mm.
His idea was to appeal to Western readers, actually, to try to actually appeal to Western readers. It was way ahead of its time.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's what ended up happening. It was just kind of like 1976. Manga wasn't really the worldwide sensation that it is today.
Right.
And so, but yeah, he actually made it in exactly this way. So that's actually one of the reasons why we felt so enthused about making the colors so vivid and so lush, because the original was really drawn like one of like a Disney golden book, like a Disney storybook. It was so absolutely painterly and beautiful. And so yeah, we tried to recreate that, and Gurihiro's just all of their work is incredible, but their color work is so brilliant, and it's a really, and everything, all the colors are really subtle nods to the original, while kind of putting their own spin on it.
Yeah, if I could use one word that kept coming to mind when I was reading it, as it pertains to the colors, it feels very lush.
Yeah, super lush.
Yeah, it's very kind
Well,
of
and they love classic Disney too. Gurihito does, and so
yeah.
like their whole their way of approaching, from what I understand, and they can come and correct me one day if they think I'm stretching this, but from what I understand, they're trying to approach this whole entire project as a combination of Tezuka and Disney.
Mm,
That's kind of like what they want to do as far as like the way they want to draw this,
yeah.
and so because they've been studying Disney art for a long time, because it does have, especially classic Disney art. Classic
Mhm.
Disney art is what they've been, looking at, and so that's which is what Tezuka, was weaned on as well.
Yeah.
So
We don't
yeah,
want to. We don't want to spoil, but I think that the book's been out long enough, and you see it in the solicitations. I mean, we are talking about animals here. There's a cat transformed into a person.
that's
It
right.
doesn't get more Disney than that. I mean, really. Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah,
actually, that's absolutely true. Yeah, it's got some very Disney elements, and and at its base is it's a story about friendship, and so that's also a very Disney kind of element too, classic Disney element.
yeah. Well, you mentioned Guruhiro being a little reluctant, and completely understandable. Again, Tezuka known
Yeah,
as the god or godfather of manga. I mean, that's
yeah.
to read, try to do something to be compared to him is would be daunting for any artist. But
Hmm.
you're taking this on from the writer duties. Did you feel any of that as well when you?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, like well, the thing is, yes and no. I have like specific views on this, but one thing I'll say is that Tezuka himself was a huge proponent of collaboration,
Hmm.
and he loved international collaboration, and he looked at comics in his own words as an international language, like a way in which people could communicate. And so he was never somebody who he was never somebody who looked down upon or got reprisal about his work in that way.
Hmm.
He actually, and so actually, I think it'll be released soon. But there was his daughter recently wrote a letter about Unico awakening, and I'm so excited for people to see it at some point. It was really touching. But one thing that she basically said, she's like, I think that the person who would have liked this most was be Tezuka himself.
Wow.
And so, and I was like, oh, okay, that's
Yeah.
great.
Blown
So,
away.
but I mean, because the thing is, I think that I will also say though that when people are working with particularly Japanese IP and Japanese projects and trying to use things and kind of you know reimagine them for an American audience, which happens sometimes. People try to do that. I think the issue can be that they want the characters and they want the style, but they don't necessarily understand or value, I'll say, the actual meaning and weight of the work. And so it's so what I really have been trying to be conscious of throughout this whole entire thing is just to you know, honor the work and honor Tezuka and make sure that, um, I ask the questions that I need to ask, and then I really dig in and try to find out what he was trying to say. Because the thing about working with Tezuka Productions, who carry on the company in Tokyo that carries on his legacy, you know, they're actually really, pretty great about allowing. I mean, they really are. They allow us to do they're like, you can do your own story. You
Hmm.
can reinvent everything. They don't mind anything like that. What they care about is A, that the characters look somewhat they're supposed to,
Right.
and B, that we tell the story in the spirit of Tezuka and his ideas
Hmm.
and his so that we honor the themes.
Right.
So that's what I'm really careful about with this. And I feel like though I have people to look at it. And so if I were to go completely off base, I think that, Tezuka Productions would let me know that I was kind of weird, going to weird territory. But we haven't had that experience yet. And I've been really, I feel welcome there. And so it's just and so it's just very much yeah, it's a big responsibility, one I take very seriously, and one that thankfully I have not had to feel as nervous about because we seem to be doing a pretty okay job.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you've read the original, you're inspired by it, you feel the spirit of it, you want to honor it. It'd be kind of hard to almost, for this particular property, might not always be, the case. Some of his other more mature titles where it gets a little more complex with,
Sure.
character
Yes.
choices and what have you. But again, with the themes that we've already talked about with this are pretty universal and pretty relatable. So I think it's probably pretty easy to stay on track.
Yeah, well, and then there's also these little things like one like he explores like themes of reincarnation and stuff like that too, which are some of the things that we try to kind of fold in there in a little bit of a way. And like it's you're absolutely right though. It's like one of the it's adhering to it's making sure that we're doing something that he would have been okay with in his own eyes. Yeah. So that's the idea.
So you get the project, and you probably don't, obviously don't know how successful it's going to be on Kickstarter or what have you, and then it goes over to Scholastic, which I'm sure it's going to sell millions of copies. But because it's unknown, had they already committed to doing multiple volumes, or were you just going to get one volume and then see how it went? Like, did you know that ahead of time?
No, so because I mean, like the reason why we brought Unico to Kickstarter is supposed to try to we considered going straight to a publisher and trying to get a publisher to pick up the book, But I think the issue is that even though Unico does have like a following and definitely a cult following for sure, it's hard sometimes to get a publisher to look at something that doesn't have a proof of concept. Mm-hmm. It just like looks like you're like, no, but really, guys, this is a good idea. I promise. It's really cute, and just it's very they're not gonna. It's harder to understand it with something like this, and so we felt like we had to show rather than tell, which is why we did the Kickstarter, and that was a big show. And so people came and, we knew very quickly that there were a lot of people who really, really valued what we were doing. And so that was actually what kind of made us feel like, okay, regardless of what any publisher says, we at least have something that somebody wants to read. This seems like an important project to people. And we felt it was important as well. And so, I made it so it could definitely be a series because I had an idea for how I would want it to be a series, like a multi-series. That was like, to me, just kind of like a distant dream, kind of something that I hoped I could do. But as happens, we also wanted to make sure that it ends on its own, that it ends up, kind of with a somewhat closed story. So
right. Satisfying.
Yeah, just satisfying story so that we don't completely, overshoot ourselves. And, so I thought maybe if we could get after the Kickstarter, like, okay, we can definitely get a publisher to pick it up, but maybe we'll just get it then to distribute it, or we'll get like 1 or 2 volumes, or they'll say, okay, we'll do 1 volume, we'll see how it does, and then we'll go from there. But then when we went to Scholastic, they had a vision for it that was like identical to what we saw for it, which is wild. And so they were like, yeah, we want to go for the full series. And so like it was just all of us just kind of flipped a lid, and it was it was an incredible moment. But yeah, that's so no, we were not expecting to have that kind of continuity from the beginning. We thought we would edge into it and see what happens, and then when it did, it was just such an incredible surprise.
Yeah, and again, the perfect place for it to land, despite you having to pinch yourself. Hey, is this really happening?
Oh yeah, really. Yeah.
So to be clear, everybody out there in the audience, this is just the first issue, if you will, or part of the story that's going to go on for a long time. So let me ask you, Samuel, do you have an idea of how many volumes? How far do you have plotted? Like, where are you in the process?
So far we have I have to be careful with my words a little bit, but right now we have 4 more volumes signed on, 4 volumes signed on, and we're looking between 4 and 8.
Gotcha.
So it's like, so that's all I can say at the moment.
Yeah, fair enough.
But it's gonna but yeah, I've written it for a longer series than what we have coming out. But this is the first volume, and I've been told to. But this is the first volume, and the second one will be out next June.
Yeah. So, and what I will say again, that this really is for all ages. Everybody can get something out of it. I really enjoyed it. But going back to the idea of younger readers, right? Like if you have, let's say, a 6 or 7-year-old, they're struggling to read, you can't get them to read, or they have trouble reading. I mean, this is one of those books that can be a great bedtime story. Read it together as a family. You can talk about, the events. There's lessons to be learned. Like, just so much value, story value, and rereadability, I think, in what you've done here. Have you had feedback
Thank
like
you
that?
so much. I'm so glad to hear that. Yes, and that's been it's been, I mean, it's still just, so it's funny because, I mean, I'm super appreciative because it's always so wonderful to hear that that's kind of coming across. And I've been hearing it in the beginnings, in the rumblings, and the murmurings, and people talking about the book.
Yeah, once it gets released by Scholastic and it's out there wider, I imagine you'll hear more of that.
I'll hear a lot, yeah. But I mean, it's definitely like I've always been like, I've had my ear out, especially for what kids say when they read it, and so we've had a few kids read it, and they've been like, the reactions have been very positive. So it's just like, we haven't had anybody, because I mean, kids are honest, and so they'll tell. Like, they'll be like, nah, I'm like, not for me. But no, like, everybody's like, when's volume 2 coming out? Like, I can't wait. So it's like, from people, especially from a lot of librarians and booksellers, I've been hearing a lot of really wonderful comments that are kind of that echo yours, and it's just, it's humbling, and I can't wait to see what the rest of the world thinks as well.
Yeah. Do you have any sort of timetable, even tentative, for volume 2?
As far as for when volume 2 is going to be out?
Yeah.
June of 2025.
Gotcha. So about a year.
Yeah, I think at the Comic-Con panel at STCC, there's going to be, we're going to be teasing some, we're going to showcase some, I think the cover from book 2 and some sequences too, some panels and pages.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I'll let everybody know, if you are going to be at San Diego Comic-Con, the panel is going to be on Thursday at 2 p.m. In room 28DE. And you guys will be talking specifically about Tezuka, honoring him, talking about some of the things he's known for, obviously Astro Boy and that sort of thing. Yourself, you're going to be there. You mentioned your friend Deb Aoki; she's going to be on the panel as well. So yeah, if you're into manga, that's definitely the panel that you want to go and check out. And obviously, you guys will be talking about this first volume. As well as subsequent volumes, like Samuel just said, get a chance to get a sneak peek of the cover of Volume 2. Yeah,
it's going to be a lot of fun. There's also going to be Ben Applegate's going to be on the panel, who's a renowned translator, and he's actually translated the original Unico into English. So that'll be really exciting to talk to him. And we'll be talking about all things Tezuka and Unico, and come on by, say hello. And also going to be doing a signing afterwards.
Okay, and is that the signing going to be at the Scholastic booth?
I think it's the Sales Pavilion.
Sales Pavilion. Okay, gotcha. So that's upstairs, everybody. That big kind of open area where you pick up your badge and your bag rather, and program that area. So
awesome.
Well, as we're winding down here, Samuel, I want to thank you for your time. It's been fantastic. Again, just in preparation for this, I've learned so much about manga. I have a kind of a new respect for it, and it's just amazing. I love the book; it's fantastic. But I want to give you the opportunity. Anything else you want to share with our audience? The floor is yours.
Oh, thank you so much. No, that all means so much to me, and manga's pretty great, right? There's a lot of stuff to learn, and there's so much good material out there, and keep reading it. It's awesome, right?
Yeah.
Let's see here. So there's the panel on the 25th, and then for anybody who's local or interested, I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm in San Francisco. And there's going to be the early release event for Unico is going to be at the Kinokuniya, the Japanese bookstore in historic Japantown, San Francisco, from 1 to 3 p.m. on August 4th. So if anybody's in the area and wants to come out, that's where we'll be.
Oh, wow. I wish I went to college in the Bay Area, in Moraga.
Oh, where'd you go?
I went to St. Mary's in Moraga.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wish I could. I live in Phoenix now. I definitely.
Gotcha.
Definitely miss. I miss the city. So I'll say that.
That's lovely. Yeah.
But if I don't run into you at the show, talk about how busy we're both going to be there. Have a great con, and congrats on, from Kickstarter to the book deal with Scholastic. It's been quite a journey. So congrats on the success so far. And much like yourself, I look forward to hearing the reaction when the Scholastic release happens and it goes goes kind of a little bit wider than the Kickstarter.
Yeah, no, I so appreciate it, and it's been wonderful speaking with you. And yeah, and I'm on, and you can probably find me on socials at Samuel Sattin, and just my name. That's pretty much what it is. And I'm out and about, so come say hi.
Great. I'll put links to Samuel's social media in the show notes, everybody. So if you have questions, you want to ask him, you want to let him know once you get a chance to read it what you thought of it, I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. So again, if you're having trouble finding him, just go in the show notes. I'll have the links to the social media. And we want to thank you for joining us. As always, everybody, we appreciate the support, and we'll talk to you next time.